Welcome all, and thank you for joining Women's Way for closing the Gender Wealth Gap Forum, Resource Navigation and Support. I am Diane Corman-Levy, the Chief Disruptor at Women's Way, and I am delighted that you have all decided to spend the next 90 minutes with us. I know folks are still joining us, so while we wait for folks to sign on, I would appreciate you taking the poll. We always want to know if this is the first time attending a Women's Way event, so if you could just take a few seconds to finish that poll, that would be great. Thank you. So today's forum is part of a year-long series whose purpose is to educate different stakeholders about the drivers of the gender wealth gap and what steps each of us can take to help close the gender wealth gap. Since October 2020, we actually started these during the pandemic. We have conducted 25 forums that have addressed different drivers of the gender wealth gap, such as strengthening the early childhood education sector, decreasing gender and racial disparities in healthcare, increasing access to affordable housing, and eliminating the student debt crisis. During this year, we have been exploring and continue to explore how we can create a future where all women and gender nonconforming people have the stability, care, and opportunities they need to thrive. Each session spotlights the change makers and organizations working across 4 key dimensions of the gender wealth framework, a tool developed by Women's Way to promote dignity, equity, and joy in our communities. Today's session will explore the dimension of resource navigation and support. We believe everyone deserves support without judgment or shame. Accessing important resources, whether housing, childcare, or legal help, should not be a maze of barriers. The panelists will discuss how we can remove these barriers so that women and gender nonconforming individuals can reach their goals and thrive. You will have opportunities to ask questions to the speakers via the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. Closed captioning is enabled. If you do not want to see closed captioning, you can click Hide CC at the bottom of your screen. The chat is also enabled, so please share your comments. We'd love to hear from you during the session and to create a safer space for all of us so we can engage in honest and challenging discussions. We ask each of you to abide to the session's norms listed in the chat box. Finally, we are recording the session and we will make the recording of the session available to you to view again and for those who could not attend today's session. After the session, we will also send you a list of resources related to today's topic and a survey to evaluate this session. We deeply value your input as we seek to continually improve these educational forums. So before we get to the panelists, which I know is why you're all here, Kelly Sheard, the Chief Strategy Officer, and I are going to spend the next few minutes providing an overview of the economic state of women and children, our new theory of change, and key concepts related to the gender wealth framework. And first, I'd like to thank our session sponsors listed here who really enable us to provide these educational sessions for free. So thank you to all our sponsors. We just embarked on a strategic planning process and we launched our new 3-year strategic plan in January of this year. And this is our vision statement, which is really what we dream of when we envision our future. And this can look like a wider community that comes together to ensure access to abortion and gender-affirming care, the opportunity to grow a family and not sacrifice a career, or post-incarceration resources to stabilize re-entering citizens. We're all looking for a future where everyone has security, dignity, freedom, and joy. And of course, why do we exist and why we achieve how we achieve our vision. Here we are talking about disrupting oppressive systems such as white supremacy and patriarchy, and strengthening other models, other alternative models that will lead us to a brighter, more dignified, and free future for all women and gender expansive folks. So if we look at the economic state of women, and we always bring this into these sessions because I think it's important to understand where we are in relation to the gender wealth gap. We know that those who are living paycheck to paycheck and are not able to pay to cover an unexpected $400 expense are predominantly women and gender nonconforming individuals. The region's largest demographic group living in poverty are still women ages 25 to 34. Nationally, straight cis men have the lowest poverty rate, and transgender people have the highest poverty rate. Related to these stats is the gender wealth gap, which is what Women's Way is really working to address, which is larger than the gender pay gap and unfortunately is continuing to grow. The gender wealth gap is a stronger indicator of economic insecurity than the pay gap, as it influences the people's ability to weather current financial challenges, as well as save and invest in their future. For every dollar a white man owns in material wealth, women overall own just 32 cents. When considering the racial demographics of the same statistic, Black and Latino women own just 1 penny. And currently, there is no good data on the wealth gap for transgender individuals, an area that desperately needs to be researched. So, what's the problem? Well, we've certainly been hearing about a lot of problems in our country lately, and we are really like racial injustice, like climate change and world hunger. The gender wealth gap is a systemic issue, and it requires systemic answers. It is therefore important to examine the design of systems that consistently produces outcomes. And systems are not natural or inevitable. They are constructed by decisions and choices. Our dominant economic system is designed to embed racialized capitalism, wealth supremacy, and heteropatriarchy into its very function, leading to a growing gender wealth gap. And I just want to pause and examine these theoretical frameworks as they help explain how and why marginalized genders have inadequate access to and limited experience of wealth. So racialized capitalism is capitalism at its core and is focused on private ownership of property where one class of people control and profit from the labor of the subordinate class. The social and economic structure of capitalism reflects a system of relationships of domination among categories of people. In the United States, that domination is racialized. Wealth supremacy is an economic system that believes wealthy people matter more than others. It is cultural and political processes and attitudes by which wealthy people accumulate and maintain prestige, power, and privilege. Our economic system protects the extreme hoarding of the privileged class by supporting and enabling strategies of extraction and exploitation. So our capitalistic system is really built on a system of exploitation and extraction. And then heteropatriarchy is a logic that justifies the subordination of all those who are not heterosexual cisgender men. Anything outside of this constructed norm is seen as deviant and unworthy, and therefore dehumanization and oppression of other genders becomes justified. A lot of comments, and we have some more information about this in our Gender Wealth Framework report, which is on our website. So to challenge and disrupt dominant systems that perpetuate and worsen gender inequities, we must understand the conditions that keep systems in place. And this diagram shows 6 conditions that keep a problem in place. The explicit conditions include policies, practices, and resource flows, such as government, institutional, and organizational rules, regulations and priorities, activities of institutions, coalition networks, and other entities targeted to improve social and environmental progress, and how money, people, knowledge, information, and other assets are allocated and distributed. The semi-explicit conditions are relationships and connections and power dynamics, which are the quality of connections and communications occurring among actors in a system, and the distribution of decision-making power, authority, and influence among individuals and organizations. The implicit conditions, which we often don't talk about or address when we're doing systems change, are mental models, which are deeply held beliefs and assumptions and taken for granted ways of operating that influence how we think, what we do, and how we talk. Mental models are shaped and influenced by narratives, which are the stories we tell and the mindsets, beliefs, and ideas we hold that help us organize our thinking and explain how the world works. When it comes to the gender wealth gap, we often find harmful narratives that prop up oppressive power structures and enable inequitable outcomes. So in relation to, and this is my last slide that I'll be transitioning to Kelly Sheard, This is our theory of change. And I wanted to share this with you because the gender wealth, these series are part of our theory of change of how we feel, what needs to happen, how and with whom in order to see the changes we seek. So, in order to realize our mission and ultimately our vision, we believe gender inequities are deeply rooted in long-standing systems of white supremacy and capitalism, and we must tackle them at the root in order to see changes. We can't keep only treating the symptoms of inequities and not address the root. To do so, we are investing in narrative change work that will shift conversations, and this is part of the work we're doing right now during this gender wealth series, but to shift conversations about gender and economic equity and also help build the capacity of our partners to lead and invest with equity. I know this is a lot, but I wanted to get just a basic understanding of how these gender wealth education series are part of our theory of change and part of our work to promote gender wealth equity. I'm now going to pass it over to Kelly Shearer.
Great. Thank you. So I just wanted to start with our definition of wealth, which you'll see is a little different than a typical definition of wealth. And this is borrowed by our friends or coming from our friends from the Maven Collaborative. When wealth is accumulated, we live and retire with greater dignity, freedom, and peace of mind. Our communities are prosperous, resilient, and vibrant. Future generations have the freedom to dream big and become all they can truly be. And we're healthy and know that our families, networks, and communities are healthy, spiritually whole, and contributing. Next slide. The gender wealth framework provides a way to capture the nuance of an experience of wealth that is most relevant to folks of a marginalized gender experience. It's a roadmap for our network to understand and measure whether their work is moving towards closing the gender wealth gap. Next slide. The framework also emphasizes the importance of thinking about dominant narratives, meaning the stories we tell about how we got here, who deserves what in order to be well, and how our society should work. We also call attention to how these narratives inform the design and outcomes of the current economic system and how it impacts marginalized genders. So this graphic is super small, but we're going to go through and explain a bit more about it. Next slide. The gender wealth framework expands how we think about and measure abundance and success. The framework encompasses 3 components. Number 1, material well-being. This measures traditional notions of economic stability and provides point-in-time assessments of one's financial situation. So these measurements focus on access and affordability of resources. Lived experience measures the felt experience of abundance in communities and institutions. And finally, system conditions and context acknowledges and highlights the historical and current structural specificities of wealth inequality by examining the conditions that are keeping us from making progress towards more liberatory futures, things such as mindsets, power dynamics, policies, and resource flows. Next slide. From here, the gender wealth framework is focused on wealth in 5 dimensions. In today's session, we will be focused on resource navigation and support. Next slide. Going deeper, resource navigation and support is defined by the following indicators of success. Women have places and spaces to go and be supported and heard without shame, judgment, or guilt. Women receive support that considers historical and structural inequities as much as individual choices. Women can easily find and access available resources, and resources and supports meet the needs and goals of women and are designed by and with women. Next slide. Our goal with this session is to introduce you to organizations and people who are doing meaningful work in this space. We want our network to understand what's possible as we work together to create futures of abundance that work for everyone. To that end, I'm pleased to welcome our moderator, Aathira Chennat, Program and Data Manager, into the space. Aathira will introduce our panel of change makers into the webinar. Welcome, Aathira.
Thanks, Kelly. It's always so funny to look at a photo of yourself on a big screen. But I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really just feeling a lot of whiplash lately. Just feeling like there's so much to pay attention to and so much to be angry and feeling despair about. But I've been really looking forward to this conversation precisely because we get to talk to people who have been doing the work of supporting community through all sorts of different harsh and uncertain times, and will continue to do so. So no better time to bring people like that together. So not to put too much pressure on our panelists, because they really just are amazing. But I'd love for them to come on screen and introduce themselves. Welcome. Maybe we can start with Corinne and then move to Monique and then finally Latoya. And I guess intro question for each of you is to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about how you think your work connects to this idea of resource navigation and community support.
Yeah. So, hi, everybody. My name is Corinne Goodwin. My pronouns are she and they. I am the founder and executive director of Eastern Pennsylvania Trans Equity Project. We're an organization with a mission of empowering transgender people, non-binary people, and the people who love them. Because, like, when I transitioned, everybody around me did too. So we try to help those folks as well. And kind of just to talk a little bit about what we do and try to tie it into your framework. So the first, our programming really falls into kind of 4 swim lanes. So the first one really is providing safe, brave, and joyful spaces for our community members. So one of the things historically that has happened for LGBTQ movements, and is certainly happening right now, is that the way that we survive is that we find our chosen family, we find our community. So we run 19 different monthly support community spaces that meet on Zoom, in person, and online. We have mentoring programs and other supportive services programs to help people move forward. We do a lot of basic needs assistance. So, poverty, you already heard it, poverty amongst the transgender community is the highest of any kind of marginalized population in the country, and that is especially so for transgender people of color. So, our basic needs assistance, food, rent, electricity, because you can't go to school, you can't go to work if you don't have food in your belly, a roof over your head, and electricity to charge your devices nowadays. So that's where we kind of go after the symptomology of what's going on. But then we also have empowerment programs. So these are things like educational scholarship programs, and we'll fund everything from, we just put a kid through barber school to somebody going after their PhD, working to become a therapist. But we also do legal name change assistance so people can apply for jobs and driver's licenses and all those things to help them move forward. And then, so those are kind of addressing those root causes. And then last is advocacy and education. So we work a lot with governments, and I spend a little more time in Harrisburg than I would like, advocating on behalf of our community, social services organizations, to try to train them to provide better services for our community. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Good story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Monique Taylor. I am a peer outreach specialist for Project Home. And Project Home is an organization. The Home is an acronym. So the H is for housing, the O is for opportunities, the M is for medical assistance if you need it, and the E is for employment and education. So I am a special initiatives outreach worker. I am contracted to the Department of Behavioral Health, Intellectual Disabilities, so DBH, and I only work in the Kensington community. I work with people in the opioid epidemic community. I am a person in long-term recovery. I celebrated 10 years in June, and I am a plethora of resources. Um, the reason why I chose to work in this population is because I am also a part of the community. I don't just work here, but I live here. I'm here more than I'm home. So we provide services for all walks of life, including we are the only shelter service that will take our furry friends. So we house them. We have over 1,100 housing units. We also have a respite, which is a place that isn't so restricted. It's a low demand place. They're free to come and go for 24 hours. There's no curfews. For this community that I work with, having curfews would be difficult. So we're trying to remove the barrier. We have a bridge to all treatment services, all medicated assisted treatment services, all mental health services. Uh, we have a clinic at 22nd and Cecil B. Moore, the Stephen Klein building. So the resource navigation and community support is what we specialize in. And we don't, it's a no judge zone. We work with all demographics again, even the furry friends, because it's hard to engage with people that have other family members that aren't walking on 2 feet. They may have 4. So, we work with them, and I love what I do. And I'm like Corinne, I'm gonna stick with that.
Thank you. Yeah, word for word, like what this dimension is all about for both these orgs. Latoya, do you think you could tell us a little bit about you and your work?
Yes, so my name is Latoya Maddox. I'm senior independent living specialist at Liberty Resources, serving Chester, Montgomery, and Delaware counties. Liberty Resources has been serving Philadelphia County for over 40 years, so we just branched off almost 3 years ago and now serve more counties. And we are an agency who serves consumers, individuals with cross disabilities 14 till they pass away. We ensure their rights and needs are being met while they're living independently in the community. We want to make sure people's dignity and autonomy is, being met in an equitable world for our work, one where people who are aging and disability aren't the barrier, aren't the barriers. We want people with disabilities to have the freedoms to do anything anybody else does. We have a plethora of groups, just like Monique has at Project Home. We have a group specifically for moms with disabilities. We have children with or without disabilities. We have skills training classes where we teach consumers how to cook on a budget and be healthy while doing so, and just a plethora of other resources. I call my department specifically the plug to the sill because we have other umbrella agencies there. We have pest eradication, durable home mods. We have a housing department that's specifically for nursing home transition consumers, a home care agency, and then it's again the independent living services department, which is also the nursing home transition department as well, because we transition people out of nursing homes who want to move back into the community. So we do a lot.
And yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more, get into the specifics of what each of you do. And Latoya kind of spoke to this, but I'd love to ask Monique and Corinne, what does an equitable world look like for your work and for your community?
I don't
I'll
know.
let Monique go first.
Okay. Well, for the community that I am a part of, it would definitely be, it's always wanted and needed. Um, so it's never been equitable for us. So we don't know what equitable means. We just take what's given and we do the best with it. Um, what I would like to see, when Kelly was reading out the things and I was reading, it said when we accumulate wealth, you know, what does that look like for us? You know, equitable would be kind of far-fetched for us. We uh have been slighted in so many ways and crossed out and judged and stigma and all those things that come with this community. Equitable would mean that people would not have so many uh, opinions and things like that, and stigma would be no more, which just doesn't sound realistic. So like, where do we go for equity? Where do we go to be equitable? I don't know. I really don't. Like, I can't say, oh, it would be like this, and that, because we've never had it. So we know what we would like it to look like, where we could have access to treatment without having to go to the hospital and be judged and be turned away because we're nodding, or be turned away because we don't look like the person sitting next to us, that may have more than us. But we're human too, and we want to be counted in, not out. We're a part of a
Absolutely.
community that, you know, it's really tough out here. It really is. In my community, I have trans people that I support. We put them in placement, and then they go into placement and they face all this discrimination, not just from staff, but from other members that live there too. So we're both living here. We're both here for the same thing. We're no different. I just may look different, but we're not different. We're both in need of something. And we just don't get it, Aathira. We just
Yeah,
don't. We're just losing, like, all across the board. It's
yeah,
hard.
I hear you. And I think you bring up like, yeah, one of with the harshest, like the biggest conflicts of doing this kind of work is that you are in the realities of what your community is facing every day, and you see the hardships and you see how far we have to go. And also, as an organization that does the work that you do, there's kind of, I think for Women's Way, we have an obligation to really believe in our mission and believe that there is a possibility to create new systems and create new worlds, and that we have to keep that imagination in
Hmm.
order to do the work that we do. And
Yes.
it's really hard to kind of balance those two. Um, and I want to kick it to Corinne, in case you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, so I'll just throw some statistics at you. 46% of transgender people live in poverty. So like we were talking about in Philadelphia proper, 25% of people live under the poverty line, but for trans folks, it's like 46%, right? Everybody's bragging about an unemployment rate right now of about 4%, but for trans people, it's at 18%.
Mm.
30% of us have been homeless at some point in our life. 57% of us have been rejected by our family members, which means that, when you do run into those hard times, you don't have that
You know,
safety net to fall back on, right?
hmm
And then I think that when we look at the intersectionality of it all, right? So you're a trans person and you're a trans person of color and you're a trans person of color who maybe has a disability, and then maybe you have an addiction problem on top of that, right? All that stuff starts to pile up. And so, the question is really, how do you break the cycle, right? And I kind of said earlier that, in queer communities, it's always kind of been about you finding that chosen family who will bring you into their home or bring you into
Mhm.
that safe space, right, to give you that chance. But I think that for what equity means to me, and to the people that we work with every day, is that we shouldn't have to navigate all of those obstacles right out of the gate.
Mhm.
And I listen, I am a relatively privileged white woman. I own, outside of running a nonprofit, I own a business consultancy firm. When I came out 15 years ago, I knew that I was going to be fired by my clients. And I was, out of 4 active clients at the time, 2 of them did in fact terminate their contract, and one of them still owes me money to this day, right? And so when we see those things happen, I mean, luckily I was in a position where I could, recover from that. But, if you're, working, in a minimum wage job at McDonald's, and then your family throws you out, you haven't got the money to get a place, right? And then you're on the street. And, once you're on the street, it is so hard to
Mhm.
get up,
Get
right?
back.
So for me, equity is like just giving people the opportunity, just the opportunity to move forward without getting beaten back on that day-to-day basis.
Aathira, I just wanted to double back on Corinne when she was explaining, like, they may have a job at McDonald's and they don't have the family support anymore. So we're talking about my community that I'm in is predominantly Caucasian females between the ages of 19 and 32. So they come from good backgrounds and, support and stuff like that. But because the addiction, they do things to burn bridges so that they can't go back home. They don't have a job. So now they're street working, or as the police would say, obstructing the highway. And at one point I said, well, they're not on the highway. This is Kensington Ave. And they said, oh, no, we consider this a highway. And I'm like, wow. I thought 95 was the highway, but so like all these barriers that they have, so like they don't have a job. They're not, we're employable because we're educated, but we're not employable because our addiction is so aggressive. It doesn't allow us to break free from anything but what we do all day, every day. So they don't even have statistics for this community. They can't say, well, I mean, I could say predominantly Caucasian female between this age demographic because I'm on the street. I see it. I document it. I'm every day when I come in from being out on the street for 7 hours, 7.5, that one half an hour that I have, I'm documenting to the city. Like I seen 20 people today, and all 20 of them were Caucasian females between the age of such and such. And then I look at the week. So that's how I get my statistics. My statistics aren't in a computer that people go out and, well, where you from and stuff, because our kids are transient. Some of these kids, they're not from the Philadelphia County. They're from the surrounding counties in other states. So the equity for them would be trying to build that bridge so they can get back to their support. But their families are like, mm-mm, not as long as you're doing this. I don't trust you because they have taken everything. So, like, how do we rebuild that trust? We got to get them into some type of treatment, but we can't make them go. Recovery is not for people who want it. It's not, I mean, it's not for people who need it. It's for people who want it. Like, they all need it. They all don't want it. And like, so that's equitable for them to have the right to say, well, I don't want it today, but I might want it. I don't want it now, but I might want it 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
We have
And
to.
also, oh yeah, and just to add on to that, having the resources to even know who this community is,
Mhm.
have like some sort of investment to know who people are in the community, and where they come from, what they need. So I thank you all for bringing up these themes.
I was just going to jump into there
Yeah.
and just say, really quickly, the resources, when that person does hit the point where they have made that decision that they want to move forward, right? And they want to get off the street, or they want to, work on their recovery, or the other key is that the resource has to be available for
Has to be.
them at that time and at that place, right? And so building equity is also about making sure that, we, and this is like, the global we, are able to provide that resource when and where they are. We have to meet them where they are. And in the current political environment, I mean, those resources are being, pulled away. And so, I know that we're going to talk about stuff later, but like, one of our things is like, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're not dependent on government funding, because, we just know it's not going to be there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think this transitions, as you said, pretty well into another question, which is exactly this question. How do we work in step with the communities that you all are supporting? And then what are the challenges to ensuring access? You have all these amazing programs. How do you make sure they're getting to the people that need them when they need them? That's open to anyone.
So this is Latoya. So what we do at Liberty, a lot of us are also consumers, so it's lived experience. So we, actively listen, like a lot of, like Corinne and Monique was saying. We meet people where they are, whether that's through home visits, community events, phone check-ins. We build deep relationships with our consumers. The biggest challenge is often visibility. Many people with disabilities don't know help is available, or they've internalized that they shouldn't ask for help, which is, it's just a learned behavior. And then another barrier is that the complexity of navigating services, especially those who may not have internet access, transportation, or the family support. So you have a person with a disability out here on their own with no support. They're calling us, and we're honestly helping them navigate home and community-based services. So we're going on the county assistance website, helping them apply for food stamps, helping them apply for waiver services. We're their only support. So we're using, our work email addresses sometimes to help them, and that's okay because we're allowed to do that in some instances. But that's a big challenge. And a lot of service providers, they've been it's like a ball and chain now, because a lot of us get our services go through the state, and the supports coordinators that we have, they're not allowed to be advocates. So we're now being bigger advocates, or being forced to be bigger advocates, when some of us don't have the voice to do so. So now they're calling the agency. We're now left with caseloads that are over some 65, 70 consumers, and we're working night a day, 9 to 5, to make sure everybody's needs are being met. But again, we try to meet people where they are, and they are allowed to come to the agency to get the support as well if they have nowhere else to go. They are allowed to come there, and then we help them navigate if they want to go into shelter or wherever, that as well. So.
I would say for Project Home, the one thing that separates them from a lot of other organizations is that we do have big private donors, with lots of money. John Bon Jovi, the Honickmans, the McGuires, the Fitzgerald, these are all people that privately donate. We just received a $25 million grant from a couple that is trying to collaborate with the hospitals, but I think it's the way that we spend the money. Like, you could run an organization with little money and do big things, small but mighty, as opposed to being large. And like, I try to encourage my superiors, like, putting it into grassroots organizations and back into the community because, when I go home, I'm outside of the community, but my phone keeps me connected. So, like, even though I'm off of the clock getting paid, I'm on the clock still providing services that money can't buy, So, like, I think that, oh, and we do a lot of begging. Like, let's not forget that part. Like, that's the most important part because, like, if you don't partnership with people and say, listen, let me, so like we have Esperanza, the Mothers of Mercy, the Rock Ministries, all these organizations, New Kensington Community Development. We work with all of them where at one time we didn't but when they asked us to come into this community, we had to let them know we're not going to make it if we don't get in with these other organizations. That's the only way we work, in totality is if we all working together. You know, medicated assisted treatment programs that bring services into the community, wound care specialists that come from Jefferson, Temple, University of Penn, things like that. But I wish that like with all the things that go around and we starting to see the funding dwindle, but the donorship rising, that they would take some of that and provide some more services for, like in my office where I'm at now, I have 2 showers where people can come in and, take a bath, and they have clothes, and, we have soap and towels and stuff. But when I leave and they're knocking on the door and they can't get in, where do they go? We need to have more services just for the basic life necessities, because we all need them. We're in a code red. We've been in a constant code red. The city gave us no cooling zones, no cooling spaces, So I wish that someone would come up with some type of small grassroots organization. It could be me, I don't know. Like, and purchase a space here in Kensington so you're in the community because they don't like to go out of the community because they're far away from the drug. So, like, why should I have to go all the way up? We got the shelter at 2100 Girard, the old Philadelphia nursing home. They're like, well, how am I going to get back? How am I going to get back and forth? Because I need to be here or I'm gonna be in withdrawal. And that's my biggest fear. So like we need to look at logistics for people. We need to look at like, and like I said, having money isn't always the answer
Yeah.
because you could be small but mighty. Women's
So,
way is mighty.
so I'll just say like, I hear like that budget number and my head blew up because I like to think we're one of those small but mighty organizations. So our budget's like $250,000 a year,
Yeah.
right? And we spread our work out over 42 counties in the state.
Mm,
So basically think from State College all the way out to the Delaware River, basically. And um that has forced us, to kind of build our organization a little bit differently, right? So,
mm-hmm.
um, our goal is to meet our people, where they are, right? And that's, it's hard to put, people on the street, let's say in, rural Tioga County, which is like as far away from me as you can get and still be in Pennsylvania, I think,
Mm-hmm.
right? But so we've really worked hard at reaching out to people through social media and through, making sure our website is accessible. We're in the middle of a project to, right now it's all in English, but to add Spanish language version of our website, for example, to try to create that ability for people to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I think that the other thing, you did a great job kind of talking about this, Monique, but is um, really making sure that the organizations are connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's connected in terms of, so actually I wrote down myself a note to reach out to Latoya, because one of our goals is to set up a support space for people who are deaf and use ASL, right? So because we've had like 4 people reach out that need those types of services for us now. So we want to try to create that type of space. So how do we connect, my organization with Latoya, with Monique, and make sure that we're able to, provide those services for our folks. But then also it's about sharing resources. And when I talk about resources, I mean money, right? So,
Yeah.
there may be a grant that I find out that is out there, but, it really isn't the perfect fit for us, but it might be a perfect fit for another organization. And I think that there is a tendency, just because like this is America and, free enterprise system, right? But is like, you're like, oh, well, that's my grant. When the
Mm-hmm.
truth is that, I probably could invest hours in writing that grant application and bomb, right? But, Latoya or Monique or somebody else could probably whip that baby out in an hour and do a whole lot of good with that money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing I was going to say is, so what we have really seen is, as thankfully, as we have seen corporate donors in particular, because of the concerns around DEI and government contracts and all this other stuff. But as we've seen corporate donors flee, what we have seen is individual donors step up.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, we are so thankful. And we are like reaching out to them on a daily basis, going, "You're wonderful. Thank you for your," whether it's $20, $100, or
That's
$1,000,
right.
we don't care, right? That money is going to good work.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's such a clear call here when we have kind of like what Monique was saying about what happened in the city these last couple of weeks. Um, Workers were on strike asking for better pay. So that meant their libraries weren't open. There weren't a lot of cooling spaces. We have state and federal funding being pulled back. So there's just these huge gaps and people not getting the services and the supports that they need. So there's a big call for private funding, individual donors to really step up during this time, um, and and help people get the continuity of services. Um, yeah, thank you for that. And I saw Latoya you nodding your head a lot when you were talking when Corinne was talking about visibility and making sure your website's accessible, et cetera. I was wondering if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, so we recently updated our website, so it's more accessible and reader friendly for people, or even screen reader friendly for people who are low vision and blind. And if it's not yet, it's going to be, because again, we're a agency that serves people with cross disabilities. So if you go on the website and you see any accessibility issues, you could just reach out to me and I'll let you know. And the other part was the deaf community overall. I think in all counties, I think it's Chester County that may have the best uh, uh, community access to deaf resources. But other than that, a lot of the other counties, they don't know who to go to, or the consumer will show up wanting to get, and they should be able to get on-demand service, but there's no ASL interpreter at that organization. And I know Liberty, we used to have an ASL interpreter on staff, but because of funding issues and everything, they had to move on for whatever reason. And we've not been able to get another person back. Luckily, we have an admin who is deaf and no sign language, but it would be good for somebody who, a staff member to be able to, again, get hired. But again, you need that money so that person can have that, salary and things of that nature. So yeah, but yeah, we're here. I've been, another thing I wanted to mention. So the SILF has been in Philadelphia for 40 years. We've only been in Chester, Montgomery, Delaware counties for 3 years. There was another agency that was doing this work, but then they put in a bid for us to take over. for what, for whatever reason, because people weren't being served in the community as efficiently, and that's not a jab at any organization that was helping out and doing what they needed to do. The central organization just wasn't pulling their weight. So we took over. However, there's all these municipalities and all these people in power, and some people don't know and don't want to understand what it is to be a person with a disability and navigating how to get a job, navigating trying to get to a post office that's not accessible or into a post office that's not accessible, and things of that nature. So, we need money, as Monique said, we need money.
For that. I'm going to move on to another question. I'm deciding which one to pick. There are so many. We talk a little bit about this idea. We talk about this idea of individual choice in this dimension. That's one of the kind of affirmation statements that we have. And I think each organization in its own way kind of addresses this ability to choose as being fundamental to the work that you do. And so I guess I have a question of like advice that you could share to other service providers of how to better respect people's autonomy, their right to choose, be it through the right to choose to be a part of programming, their right to choose what's best for them, et cetera. What could we all stand to learn?
Yeah.
Well,
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Monique.
Corinne.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
All right. So I'll just say that, like, right now, healthcare for transgender people is like the number one issue that we're encountering, where, from the highest levels of the federal government on down, people are trying to legislate what transgender folks can't do with their healthcare decisions. And, it's a little bit of a stereotype, but, transgender people, I knew that I was different. I didn't have language for it, certainly, but I knew I was different by the time I was 4 years old, right? And that doesn't mean that everybody figures themselves out by the time they're 4 years old, but people, I wouldn't. I have to really think about how I phrase this, but choosing to come out as a transgender, gender expansive person, right, is different than many, many other marginalized communities, right? So, if you are a person of color, in this country, you knew from the day you were born that you were being treated differently, right? Or if you're a person who, English is your second language, from the minute that you get off that plane or come across the border, you're experiencing what that's like. For many transgender people, especially folks who transition, at kind of in middle age the way that I did, is that, in my case, I knew what white privilege was. I knew what male white privilege was. And I made, an affirmative decision that in order for me to, be healthy and feel safe in my body, I had to transition. I thought about that for 40 years. And so, what gives anybody the right to tell me what I can and can't do with my body and how I should have a relationship with my healthcare provider? So I think that, the number one thing that, is an issue for us right now, and I'm hearing it, I will just say that, calls into our info line have doubled this year compared to last year. And a lot of those phone calls are from the moms and the parents of transgender youth who they are afraid that they're going to lose their kids to suicide, right? Because we have healthcare providers that have decided to put money ahead of the health of their patients and are literally withdrawing healthcare from people that is life-saving. And so, we need to be telling these stories and, having folks, who are willing enough to kind of put themselves out publicly to tell those stories. We know that when So only 30% of the people in this country say they've even met a trans person versus like really knowing one. We know that when people hear our stories that they are more likely to support us. The challenge is that in times like these, right? And this is for any marginalized community, but is that, there's a real tendency to kind of withdraw in yourself and to focus on yourself and not get out there and tell our stories. And right now we need to be fighting that impulse as much as we can, in order to try to build our autonomy versus giving it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lecture over. I don't know. So,
I mean, that's a mic drop for sure. Thank you so
Yes.
much for sharing that.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you're here and you're living the way you want to live. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I would just say for me, being a member of the LGBTQ community, and I'm 60, and I could remember when I was younger, I knew I was different too. But the climate back then is not like the climate that it is now. But one of the things that I do like to look at is there should be nothing about me without me. So like I don't want people making decisions for me, for my grandchildren, for my children. Um, I just am like just at a loss for words, because a lot of my trans female friends that are African American, they are either no longer here with us because they've either, you know, were killed at the hands of someone who claimed that they loved them, or substance use disorder, mental health, suicide, and I just know that we're no different than anybody else. I know that for a fact, because I have friends who support me, and then I have friends who kind of don't, but they support my other missions, but they don't support a certain part of my lifestyle, which is none of your business. You know, I'm good at what I do in my job. I love what I do. So it's like I'm not even working, you know, but I do know that when when I engage with people that are from my community, the LGBTQ community, I do seem to advocate a little harder. I do seem to you know, put a little more energy into it because I know it's going to be a fight ahead of me, as opposed to my regular population, which remember is Caucasian white female. There's not much of a fight. It's more like, it's up to you what you're going to do. But for my community, it's a fight, especially if you're Megan's Law, you know, they have where you can't get housed anywhere in the city. So what do you do? You know, and I started to see a lot of older trans women have this Megan's Law. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I just had somebody last week like this. Now it's another one. So, like, it's like, where do we go? Like, I be at wit's end, you know. I'm stumped when I come across, Megan's Law in the LGBTQ community. It's like they're not accepted anywhere. So where do we go? Like, I don't see any resources for them. And it's not fair,
well, and I
you
think
know.
that, you know, and this is broader than just the trans community, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when you are on the street, um, and you need to put food in your belly and a roof over your head, you're going to do what you have to do. And that often means working in the underground economy, which really is either the drug trade or the sex trade in most cases, right?
Yes.
And we need to really be destigmatizing sex work,
Mhm.
right? And unfortunately, I think Monique, you told a story earlier, but I've had it happen to me where I'm walking down, you know, beautiful downtown Allentown at 6 o'clock on a June evening, and a cop comes up. I'm meeting some friends for a drink, you know, and I am far from being dressed sexy. And a cop will come up to me and go like, "What are you doing here, honey? Move it along. You're blocking the highway, right? You're loitering." And we need to understand that most trans people never participate in the sex trade, but if they do, that is often a choice they make for survival, and
Mhm.
we need to destigmatize sex work, right? But the real key is giving people, the opportunities, whether it's through Monique's program or Latoya's program or my program or whoever's program, giving that place that when they need that help or that assistance, the arms are open and the doors are open and they have
Mhm.
the ability to access it.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you for that. I think we're getting about to the time where we want to move to some Q&A, and I see there's some questions in the chat. But before I do, Latoya, did you have anything to add about individual choice, or just to add on to the conversation?
What was the question again?
It was just about kind of offering some advice to organizations, service providers, when it comes to respecting individual choice and autonomy.
Yeah, I think Monique and Corinne said a lot of it, The only way to get the people to be willing to come is to be as non-biased and open arm. Like, we're here to support you. Doesn't matter. Like I tell consumers, the more transparent and people we serve, we call them consumers. The more transparent you are with me, the better I can assist you with navigating your supports and services. You know, whether you're in a shelter, you want to get that your supports and services there, we can help you with that. If you're living on the street and you need somebody to come help you do X, Y, and Z, if I don't know the answer, I can reach out to Monique to, try to help and create. We do a lot of creating in my when working with people with disabilities. We are a lot of us are very resilient and we're very crafty in figuring things out. But when we have to come to a service provider and it's like our life is on the line, we don't want to be looked down upon, nose turned up, arms crossed. We want people to meet us, where we are. It's okay. You want a glass of water? Like, no, just that. We used to do walk-ins. So people used to walk in off the street. Sometimes they were street homeless looking for resources. Uh, Sometimes we had people come in from the LGBTQIA community saying we're being, not treated well by our community members because they had a disability, like Corinne said. It's the intersectionality. We cross, as my coworker says, we check every box in our community. Some of us are LGBTQ, some of us are Black women. I'm a mother, a Black woman, grad school. The list goes on. Again, I'm a woman at the end of the
Mhm.
day, so there's that. But we must meet people where they are in order to keep your programs. Honestly, with the way the government is going, to keep the people coming, you're going to have to.
Mhm.
Or you're going
Thank
to lose
you.
funding, and we don't want that because then there'll be more people fighting for money from donors, not fighting literally, but applying for grants and things of that nature and being
Show and prove.
yes.
Show and prove time.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. I'm gonna take a look at some of these questions in the Q&A. And for people who are watching, stay with us because you can ask questions in the comments or in the Q&A. And then we're also going to end with a presentation from our friends at PICO, who are going to talk a little bit about energy assistance programs that they have. So one Q&A question. Someone asks, are all of the services offered free? And I think this is for all of you.
Every single one of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Every single, including me. I'm free to, if you need, listen, like if I'm not available, in this community, you need a couple of things. You need consistency, you need availability, you need to be dependable, you need to be authentic, you need to be transparent, and because we're dealing with a community that have no trust. They don't trust the person standing next to them. They don't trust their family anymore. They don't trust people, their mates, their husbands, wives. But for some strange reason, they trust the drug dealer. So like my job is to change that perception. Like, this is not the only person you could trust. First of all, you shouldn't be trusting him. He should be number one on your list. But for some strange reason, because this is who they interact with on a consistent basis, they feel like I can trust him.
Mhm.
But he's giving you something that's killing you. Why would you want to trust him? So I have to give them something that's just as potent as the drug, but not a drug. So I look at hope. I look at love. I look at a hug. I look at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I look at a water, a cigarette, and somebody to listen. That's all that they want. They don't want you don't have to take them out to no fancy restaurant. They just want to know that you hear me. Like I could sit with somebody all day and, you know, walk away and don't remember a damn thing they said. But when I'm here in my community, I feel like Dumbo. Like the elephant with the big,
With
big
the
ears.
ears.
Listen, I could be talking to somebody and I'm listening to a whole nother conversation over here. But this person has my undivided attention. It's just that I am trained because it's not a safe community. So you have to be your eyes and ears all around. And they will come back and say, Miss Monique, you remember when I told you? And I'll say X, Y, and Z. They'll say, yeah, how'd you remember? It's like, honey, how can I forget? You're that important to me. Like, you are my lifeline. Remember, I am a person in recovery. I can only keep what I have is if I give it away. It's no good for me. Like Corinne said it, sharing resources. My recovery means absolutely nothing if I don't help the next addict. If I don't help the next person it may be their first time using, it may be their last. But I have to, I live every day just to come to work. It is so fulfilling because it's saving my life. And people don't have that connection to their job. Some people like, this job's killing me. Like, I gotta quit. Like, my stress level is high. And doctors like, you gotta. But that's the opposite for me. Like, they're my heartbeat. So I have to keep them, together and, you know, just let them know, like, listen, I love you in a way that you could never imagine. And it works. It works. I'm 10 plus down here. I've watched these kids, it's so sad, grow up, come back, leave, go to treatment, come back. We all slip and we all fall. But I tell them you can get back up. And they're looking at me like, yeah, like, really, can I? And I say, honey, I'm living proof. I'm living proof. I didn't get 10 years. I've been in Philly 32. So you do the math. So like, this is not something this is something that I have to do every day. It doesn't go away. You can't wish it away, can't pray it away, but you can pray that you stay in the recovery process and with the support and the people that want to help you and are going to help you. You never have to leave.
I don't know how I'll follow that, but I'm going to try. But, kind of talking about, are the services free, right? What we're
Mm,
really talking about is accessible, right?
mm,
And to Monique's point, is it's also about building trust. And trust isn't created overnight. So, we'll have people that, they kind of take that little baby step towards transition. They might pop into a support group and then they may never come back. They might come back
mhm,
5 years later. They might come back the next week, right? But, it is like, you got to make sure that you have that space available for them, whether that is working one-on-one or in a group situation, whatever it is, so that when they are ready, you're able to provide what they need. So,
mhm,
it's really all about accessibility, right? So, you know, and that includes money, that includes space, that includes time, the whole kind of range, I think.
mhm,
Yeah, and yeah, the services at Liberty Resources are free, and if they're not free, that means they're being paid for sometimes by your waiver services. So it's nothing out of the individual's pocket unless they're like on Medicare and not medical assistance, which is also known as Medicaid. But there's ways like we know how to help people navigate the system, to make sure that uh what they need is what they get at the end of the day. Um and Corinne brought up something, but I'm losing my train of thought. Um oh, the you know the resources when we get
mhm.
other agencies also need to be accessible for people, so people sometimes working with places like Liberty Resources, was it Temple Institute on Disabilities, learning how to put things in plain language. And I know Liberty Resources just got a new Braille maker, so we can make documents in Braille for people who are
Nice.
blind and they read Braille.
Mhm,
We used to be able to put our Liberty Light newsletter on disc, so again, so people could just listen to it for those who are neurodiverse like myself, and a lot of others in the community. So again, we create and recreate, and if not, reach out to people like Corinne, Monique,
mhm.
anybody else. Yeah.
I'm
Right.
hoping from this, Corinne and Latoya, um, I have an open door. I'm hoping that we could connect because from the services that you guys offer, my population definitely can fit into your population in all aspects. So, like, it's not just for the viewer, on this site listening, it's for us too. It's resources for us. So, thanks.
That is music to my ears. That's always the goal. So I
Mhm,
can't wait to see what you all are able to do together. Yeah, it makes so much sense that you would be working together. That's
mhm.
awesome. Um, okay, well, I think we will stop there. And I want to thank these three panelists so much. I will be sending out some of the resources that you all mentioned. I think we had a chance to put everybody's website in there, but I'll follow up with all the panelists, get any more information that they want shared, um, and send them out to everyone that attended or registered today. And so you'll have ways to keep in touch with these folks and the works that they're doing.
I got one shout out.
Yeah, go ahead.
One shout out to Green Street Veterinarian. Those are my people. They help me with so many things. So I thank them. Like I was surprised to see them in the chat. I'm like, yes, you know, like,
Oh,
you know, so I appreciate that. And
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank Women's Way. Thank Diane and Kelly and Aathira, Corinne and Latoya, and looking forward to all of your up and coming webinars. And I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so I'm gonna now hand it off to Lourdes Hernandez, who's going to do a quick presentation about PICO's energy assistance services, and then we'll wrap up around 5:30. So yeah, I'll hand it over to Lourdes. Thank you. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I share my screen, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Lourdes Hernandez, and I am a community engagement specialist at PICO. I work in our corporate and community impact group. Have been with PICO actually this month 30 years. And half of that time I have spent working in our community, which really expands Philadelphia and the surrounding counties, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and York, and have worked with various customer segments, but specifically our low and moderate income group. And so, first of all, I want to say you guys are your presentations and the knowledge you've shared has been incredible. I have learned so much from each and every one of you. I will be listening to this recording over and over again. And as Monique had asked, I would love to connect with your organizations because your customers and your clients are our customers. And it's so important to share resources, to share information. But again, at PICO, as we design and create programs, one of the things that we have learned, and especially I have learned in my experience with outreach, is that one size doesn't fit all. Our community is very diverse with different needs. And so over the past few years, we have modified our approach to make sure that we are taking that into consideration as we do our outreach. And most importantly, and a lot of you used a lot of the terms that, I think about is like meeting people where they are, and really understanding, there were a lot of, there were so many nuggets of information, but access, trust, being authentic, sharing resources, all of those things are so critical in the work that we do. And I am just amazed at how when I meet other individuals from other organizations, I keep learning. So I think this is such a great opportunity. Thank you for inviting me. And I will now share my screen, and I hope that you gain some information from what I will share. My presentation is usually longer, so I'm going to go quickly through everything, but I will share my deck, and I will share an extended deck that really goes into more detail for each of our programs. But again, ask any questions that you may have. I will try and answer everything. And all of the information I am talking about is you can find on our website at pico.com/help. Also, we have an amazing team that will also answer any questions. Should anyone have any questions, you can reach us. I will provide contact information. So let me share my screen now. Can everyone see my deck?
Yes.
Yep, we
I
can see.
Perfect. Okay. So again, as Aathira mentioned, this part of my presentation will focus on PICO's assistance programs and the programs and services that we have that help to address the gender wealth energy gap. And one of the things that I want to point out is how our programs can play a meaningful role in supporting women's economic empowerment, especially low to moderate income women who are disproportionately affected by energy insecurity. And here are some of the areas where our programs can really help address this gap. First of all, reduce financial stress for women-headed households, particularly single mothers and elderly women who are more likely to live in poverty and face higher energy burdens. And our assistance programs are designed to do that. And I will talk quickly about what those programs are: stabilizing housing and preventing utility shutoffs. And again, energy security can lead to housing instability. And if folks didn't know, I will let you know that loss of utilities is the #1 driver for homelessness. So our key focus is really helping customers not get to that point. And so some of the programs that we also offer when customers are facing really challenging situations is payment arrangements, due date extensions, budget billing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, helping women maintain stable housing, which is critical for employment and family well-being. Addressing systemic inequities, and we talked about inequality. So what we do is target our outreach to women, especially those in underserved communities, that improve enrollment and outcomes. And I think what's important is really providing access. Access is key to women and vulnerable communities who have limited mobility, transportation, or childcare challenges. And so at PICO, we customize our outreach methods, and we like to think that we have best practice outreach methods that reach vulnerable communities, such as our virtual assistance sessions, which are very popular, customer referrals, counseling, and very important, community-based access with strategically located community partners. That to me is critical because a lot of our community organizations service vulnerable populations. And so we at PICO, we have a lot to learn about some of these customer segments, and linking to these organizations that serve these customers is crucial for us to be able to help understand, where the need is, how best to reach out to them, what access they need. And so this is very critical and something that we do. And then finally, support economic mobility. So it's creating energy affordability that support women and gives them disposable time to invest in job training, education, or small businesses. I will not touch on this topic, but PICO has a very good workforce development program, and I think for a future session, it would be great to have someone from our workforce development team come and talk about all the programs that we have that create, sustainable income for a lot of our underserved communities and women and vulnerable customers who are struggling, as main providers, of income for their households. And so just to talk about PICO and some of the programs, what we offer a comprehensive complementary portfolio of low-income assistance programs that provide both situational and continuing assistance. And they address both short and long-term needs. We support more than 135 customers throughout our service territory, and we distribute over 170 million with direct assistance, energy efficiency, discounts, and debt forgiveness. Our assistance programs are based on the federal poverty level, and I'm sure most of you know the FPL, and these are established by the federal government, and they're based on a total gross household income and the number of individuals in the home. And again, all of this information is available on our website at pico.com/help. So about community engagement, everyone, a lot of you refer to small and mighty team. Well, we're a small and mighty team within corporate and community impact. We are 6 individuals with a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge and working with diverse communities. And our mission is to create awareness, right? It's really to inform and educate our customers. And I think that's the first thing that we have to do is to make sure that they're aware of our programs and services. And all of these, again, are designed to help energy security, promote that for our vulnerable populations. More important is access. So we can talk about all our programs and services, but we need to make sure that individuals can access our programs. And so we use methods and enrollment options to support our diverse customer segments and to help them navigate through assistance options. And then finally, advocacy. And we serve as an advocate for vulnerable customer populations through activism. We build and sustain relationships with a lot of community partners. And I'll talk a little bit more about, who they are. But again, these are three, I think, critical components of ensuring affordability for our customers, no matter who they are. As I mentioned, this slide basically just shows our FPL level for 2025. And as you know, this is updated every year. And it takes into consideration the number of people in the household and the maximum monthly income guidelines that sort of, or the monthly income guidelines that determines your FPL. If you look at the two columns in green and orange, those are really the areas where our programs have their FPL. So CAP and LIHEAP are at 150% of the FPL. So if you are eligible for CAP, you are eligible for LIHEAP, and those are the maximum monthly income levels. And then the orange is really our LIHEAP and our MEF program, and I'll talk more about what those are. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, I'll continue. So as I mentioned, I can go into detail about each of these programs, but this is sort of a quick summary of our low-income assistance programs. The first pillar is ongoing assistance. And this program is our CAP program, which is probably the most important program we have. CAP provides customers with an affordable fixed monthly PICO bill based on the household's FPL and energy burden. One of the benefits of CAP is that when customers first enroll in the program, they may be eligible for forgiveness of their past due balance. And it could be anything from $100 to $10,000. It really doesn't matter. But again, this is a one-time forgiveness opportunity, and it is and this benefit is designed to really provide customers with a fresh start. So again, a very critical component of CAP. There are other requirements for CAP. So for example, if a customer wants to enroll on CAP, they cannot have another energy provider. We usually help customers figure out what to do if they have another energy supplier, which means that they would have to, drop the supplier. But again, that's their decision. And then also customers that are on CAP, really, they can't be on budget billing because CAP does exactly what budget billing does, which is, provide a fixed monthly PICO bill. So these are some of the nuances of CAP, but again, a very critical program for customers who are struggling to pay their bills every month. And again, the whole goal of CAP is to provide an affordable bill that customers can pay month to month. The next pillar is our usage reduction programs, and LIHEAP is our conservation and weatherization program. It provides weatherization measures as well as education, which is very critical in helping customers understand how they're using energy in their home. What PICO does is they identify all customers who are eligible for LIHEAP because they do a system sweep of our customers every 3 months, and we reach out to customers. And the customers that we reach out to, we encourage them to take part in an audit, an energy audit. And what we do is go into their home and really look at, all of their appliances, how the home is weatherized. And then based on that audit, we provide free weatherization measures, and that can include a new refrigerator that's more energy efficient, a new heating system, an air conditioner, and other measures. But again, that's all based on the audit. And we also provide energy education, which is a key component of the program. A piece that's similar, that actually works in tandem with LIAP, is our health and safety program. And so as we go into the home and we are about to install measures, if we encounter any health and safety issues such as mold or other issues, we take care of it before we install the measures. So this is another benefit to customers. And by the way, all of these services are free. Okay. And then LEAP is our low income energy efficiency program. And this is an Act 129 program. And basically it's similar to LIAP in that we go into the home, we do an audit. The measures that we install are limited. And LEAP is actually, as I said, for low-income customers. We do have another component for customers who are above the FPL of 150, and I think the cost of that is like $50. So again, in addition to these energy efficiency programs, we have a ton of them on our website. So I encourage customers to go on our website. Moving to our next pillar, it's our grant programs. LIHEAP, as you know, is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and it's a federal grant, so it's not a PICO program, it's a federal grant, but we help customers and we promote LIHEAP to our customers because, again, customers who are eligible for CAP are eligible for LIHEAP, and you can give LIHEAP to, PGW, PICO, oil, but but it is also a grant that you can assign to PICO. As you know, the grant provides assistance. I think this fiscal year, customers were able to get up to $2,000 in assistance towards their bill. They do have a component for crisis, which is if the service is in danger of termination or has been terminated. So again, another important program. However, as we all know, with all the federal cuts, LIHEAP is also its future is uncertain. We don't know what will happen to LIHEAP for next fiscal year, which actually begins in November. And so I believe Washington will decide that by the end of this month. However, we are proceeding as if, it will be available in terms of our outreach strategy, but we will know more about the future of LIHEAP by the end of this month. And hopefully it is still available because it is critical for a lot of our vulnerable populations that rely on this grant. So that's LIHEAP. And then finally, MEAF. MEAF is our Matching Energy Assistance Fund. It's a hardship program, and it's designed to assist customers whose service is terminated or in threat of termination. And customers can get up to, I think, $1,250 towards their PICO bill. And the FPL for that is 200%. And then finally, situational assistance. And this is where we work with the customer one-on-one. So our community engagement group, our goal is to create awareness and ensure access to increase enrollment. And so I will talk a little bit more about how we do that. But customers that call into PICO and if they use trigger words related to hardship like loss of income, death of the primary income owner, a divorce, anything that would trigger a hardship in the family, that customer is referred to our CARES team, and that stands for Customer Assistance Referral and Evaluation Services. And those customers receive one-on-one counseling on utility and non-utility related programs that are available to them. And the goal is to create disposable income for these customers so that they can pay their PICO bill. So again, this is our portfolio of programs. And they really, really address energy security for our customers. And our goal is to make sure that our customers are aware of these programs, that they enroll in these programs. And one of the as it was mentioned earlier, one of the challenges is really creating trust and really meeting customers where they are. And again, our outreach team is very good at working with customers, but again, we rely on organizations like yours as well as a lot of other organizations in the community to help reach those customers.
Hi, I'm sorry, Lourdes. This is
Yes.
Kelly from Women's Way. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are significantly past our time. So I'd
Okay.
like to ask if you have just one more minute to do a high-level overview of the things that you'd like our audience to know. And we promise to share these slides with everyone so that they can get the comprehensive and deep overview of all the programs and share your contact information in case they have follow-up. So maybe just one more minute and then we'll wrap. Thank you.
Okay, great, and that's okay. So I just wanted to let you know that, we talked about, we offer a lot of services. We also have best practice outreach. And, customers, we meet customers at home through virtual assistants. We work with community-based organizations. We do radio remotes. So we have a plethora of ways to reach our customer, and the information on how to access all of these services are in our contact information, as well as if you wanted us to come out and do a presentation for your team. Again, we are the community engagement team, and you can reach our team at this link, and we'll be more than happy to work with you, collaborate with you on helping address our customers, specifically women. And that is it.
Thank you so much. I just read a headline that said that this is the second muggiest summer in Philadelphia history. So I know people's energy bills are soaring, and we really appreciate you sharing all of the options people have to mitigate those costs and to meet the needs. So thank you, Lourdes, for your presentation, and thank you to PICO, a trusted partner of ours, and we appreciate that you support the work. A big thank you to our moderator and panelists for the awesome conversation that you all have. Just a reminder to the audience that we'll send out the resources and slides, including all of the information that Lourdes has shared. We'll send that out to you after this time, and we hope to see you back in person for our Gender Wealth Summit, which will be September 26th. At the Quorum at University City Science Center. We're taking a deep dive on the social safety net. So we definitely want you all to come back, meet us in person, because we'll be doing a lot of learning and building and engaging together. But until then, thank you everyone and have a great night.